Well, hello! We are back with another tutorial, and you've maybe seen it already in the intro. We're gonna create this kind of thing. And you're probably wondering, what is it exactly? It is this thing. I hope Editing Nico does a great job and showing you the video what it actually is. And it is a kinetic sculpture, basically. There's an artist that's called Theo Jansen, and he created those kind of art projects, which are pretty cool, I think. And these are basically constructions that are just driven by wind, but when they are moving with the wind, they also start walking. And they have this kind of intricate mechanism where just one rotation is driving all the legs, and in this kind of offset manner, so that in the end, it looks kind of like this. So let's first check it out. What is actually happening? So a lot is happening here, but as you see, it's basically just one or two legs repeating over and over and over again. So when we break it down and we just hide everything but one leg, you'll quickly see it's actually not that complicated. It's just this one leg repeated over and over again. So as you can see, we have here this one main rotating object, and this is influencing this one bone here, kind of like the crank, and it's fixed in this position here. We have also another fixed point, which is this here. And when we connect all those bones in the right way, then we get this kind of weird motion. So this is the motion path of the tip of the leg, and this is the desired movement that we want to recreate. But there is a catch, and this is that when you just change the length of one bone, the whole concept breaks, basically. So suddenly this walking movement changes into a complete random different movement. So I will quickly show you why it is important to have the perfect length for each bone and what happens when we change the length just slightly. So as you can see, this is the right movement that we want to have. But if I just slightly change the length of this one bone and I update the motion path, suddenly this happens. Obviously we don't want to have that. We can also just maybe slightly change the length. It was just a few centimeters, but if I update it, then again, everything changes. Maybe this one here, maybe make it a little bit shorter. And yeah, you can see it already makes a completely different move. So here I have a template. By the way, you can get this file in the description below, so you can follow along. This also includes the fully rigged version, so you can either play along with the tutorial or just analyze the already complete rig. So when you get this file, this is what you get. It's just a bunch of geometry, but they are all loose. They are not connected to each other. And we're gonna use this as a template. And it will also be the geometry that will be moving with the rig. One thing that was very important when analyzing the original concept was that it's not just separate spokes, basically, but we have two big triangles that stay rigid the whole time. So when I show it to you here, you can see that this piece and this piece, they don't change their angles in this manner, like this square maybe, or like this shape here. These two stay completely rigid. And that already helps us because then we don't need to set up bones for every spoke that we have here. We just need, as you can see, some limited amount of bones that will drive everything else. So that's already a good realization in the beginning. And also the usual disclaimer in the beginning, I will use the following shortcuts a lot, which is Tab to go into edit mode in the armature and Control Tab to go into pose mode in the armature. But as usual, I will show you the current mode that I'm in the corner here, because sometimes I forget to mention that and it maybe can be confusing sometimes. And also Shift S is pretty important to put the 3D cursor in the right spot because we need some precision here, so this will also be very helpful. Now let's get started with the actual rigging. So we will put the 3D cursor with Shift S to the selected part here. So Shift A, armature single bone, but I'm gonna move it slightly down and the tip also, and move it to this point here by Shift S, selection to cursor. And this is my root bone, and it's always good to have a root bone because sometimes you need to parent some bones to a bone that is not moving at all, and this will be the bone that will have this function. And now we have to think about, okay, how do we solve all those movements? And as you can see here, we have two fixed points. One here where the whole rotation is starting, but this point is also fixed. It doesn't move. And we do this as with everything else in my rigging tutorials. It's always IKs or inverse kinematics. These are so versatile and I love them. I use them all the time, and here they are our best friends. So as you can see here, we have this fixed point. And what are IKs? Well, these are basically bone chains that have a beginning and an end, and they are both fixed, or you can move them around. But everything in between will be solved through the IK system or the IK constraint. And we will do this right here, because we need this chain to start from here, to go here, and to the first fixed point. And we're gonna just create this first, basically this first kind of pivot point. So go into edit mode, extrude with E, another bone. We also put the bones in front so we can see what we're doing. Extrude it again, this is our second bone, and extrude it again up until here. So currently the chain starts here, goes all the way down to here, and we need an endpoint for that chain, and we will extrude one more bone to the side. And it doesn't really matter in what direction it's facing, it's just important that it's distinguishable from all the other bones. And what's very important is that with Alt-P and clear parent, we disconnect it from all the other bones, so that's completely independent, that's important. And now we go into pose mode, so Control-Tab, and we have this IK here. We will also call it IK1. Yes, because there will be 2 more, so we will have 3 IKs in total. The way you create an IK constraint is fairly simple. You just click the controller first, shift select the last bone in the chain, shift I, and it says add IK to active bone. We say yes, and now this is our active bone with the constraint, and you can see right here, this is our IK system. And now when we move this bone here, you can see you have this whole chain that is moving with it. And we have the start here and the end here with this bone. But now we see that the whole thing is moving, including the root bone, but we don't want to have that. We just want the influence to go up until this bone here. Well, we can easily change it when we go into the constraints. Here you have the point chain length. When it's to 0, it goes all the way to the first bone. We can limit it to 1, 2, 3, and you can see the dotted line. That's how far the influence is reaching. So now when I move it, it's just going so far, and that's what we want to have. And now we can test it out. We can just rotate it and see what is happening. Well, not so much. It's still a little bit janky, but we can fix that. First of all, the influence is going way too far. It also includes this bone here. But this needs to stay independent because that's the bone that usually needs to have power over the chain. So we need to exclude it also from the chain. So we limit the chain length from 3 to 2. And now when we rotate it, it's going a little easier, but you still see some problems here. And this is that the IK solver tries to solve the perfect way how the bones need to be rotated. And here, that's the obvious position when it's facing up. But now when I rotate it, it changes its mind basically and says, now this is the perfect way to solve the whole bone chain. But we want to force it to stay at the top. And how we do it is by adding a so-called pole. So when you go into the bone constraint, to the IK, you see there's this field called pole target. And this is basically to have more control over the bending of the whole chain. This is especially important when you have a character with knees, which most characters actually have. And you want the control over in what direction the knee is pointing. And as you can see, this is kind of like a leg, like a knee. So this is the kneecap basically. And we need another bone where the knee is pointing towards. So we go back into edit mode. We just extrude one bone here. We disconnect it, very important. Alt-P, clear parent, move it a little bit up. And now in pose mode again, we go here. We choose the armature first and then this bone here. And now it's snap it back because depending on how you set up the bones, you need to adjust the angle, which is here, pole angle, and we just need to rotate it by 180. And now when I move it left and right, you see the knee is now pointing always towards the pole. And now when we rotate this part, you see it always is facing upwards. So this crank is now not having the full control, but the IK solver is also taking up some control and saying, no, I will face the pole. You can do everything else. You can control the start of the movement, but here I have the power here. Yeah, so that's already looking good. And now we can continue with creating this chain here. And this is just another IK chain that is completely going to this pivot point here. So we go back into edit mode. We extrude one bone here, one bone here, and we can just try to get as close as possible. It will snap to the IK target, so it doesn't have to be super perfect. And now when we go back into pose mode, Control Tab, we do the same with this one. This will also be the same IK target for this one. So select this one, shift select, shift I to active bone. You can see again the chain is going way too far, so we go into the bone constraint properties and limit the length to just 2. And now when we rotate the bone, you see the same thing is happening. We're almost there, but at this position it also snaps to the other side. And again, we need to solve this with another pole, which is no problem at all. So we'll extrude the pole here, Alt-P disconnected, I'll clear the parent. And this one will also face this part. So bone, pole bottom. Now when we rotate it, yes, this is what we want to have. This is already looking pretty good. Okay, cool. So what we can do now is connect the geometry to the bone, so we can kind of see, okay, where are we and what do we need to do. And I will just change the display mode from octahedral to stick so we can see the geometry a little bit better. And we can just parent the geometry to the bones with selecting the geometry, shift select the armature, control tab to go into pose mode. You choose the bone, so in this case this here, control P to parent it, and you choose bone. And then the geometry is attached to the bone. And we do the same with the other ones. And sometimes it can be a little bit tedious, but there's a handy add-on called Parent to Nearest Bone. And this is very handy. So when you have installed it, you just choose the geometry that you want to use. For our purposes, it's going to be this one and this one. Then choose the armature, right-click Parent to Nearest Bone, and then it will calculate the distance between the bones and the geometry and choose the hopefully right one. Like I would say like 8 or 9 out of 10 cases, it does a great job. So now when I rotate it, you will see that everything is connected. Okay, this looks pretty cool. So now we just basically need to connect these two parts and then we're basically done. But as you can see here, we have also this kind of chain that is connected to this triangle here, and the other part is connected to this chain here, to this knee basically. And we're gonna recreate it here with another IK setup. And the direction isn't really important. You can either start here and go to here or the other way. The mechanism will be the same. So we will go into edit mode. And by the way, I'm gonna change to octahedral mode to see the direction of the bones. Sometimes that's very important. Gonna press Shift A to add another bone. I'm gonna move it right here, extrude with E to this point, and then again create a second IK that I'm gonna put right here. Okay, Alt P, clear the parent again, and then we go back into Control Tab into pose mode. Do the same thing to create an IK chain, and as you can see, we already have this kind of dotted line that goes from here to here. And this is the last bone in this chain because we created it not by extruding from a certain bone, but just as a brand new bone chain. So that's why it's already set up like this. But we still need to parent those both ends. So this one will be parented to this one because this bone controls the whole triangle. Control P, keep offset. And this IK controller, which is called IK2, will be parented to this bone here. So Control P, keep offset. But now, when I go into pose mode again, you will see the chain suddenly got longer because this one is now parented to this one, and this is part of this whole chain. So now this chain is part of this whole chain. So it has influence all the way to the first bone. And we need to limit it, but because otherwise, I can show you, when I move this one here, everything moves and there's some jitters, so there are some dependency problems. So we need to limit this chain again from 0 to just 2. So this is the chain that we want to have. And now when we turn on the crank again, it's moving pretty well. Yes, this is what we need. And now all we need to do is I go back into stick mode, just need to parent this one to this bone, and this whole triangle will just be parented to this bone. And now everything is done right. We have the walking animation. That's it. Goodbye. Thank you for watching. So that's basically it for the main animation or the main rig. So this is what's happening now. And yeah, the most difficult part is actually done. Now it's up to creating the many copies of this leg, but with the offset. And I will just put the 3D cursor to, let's say, this part here. And we will create a new object, which will be, let's say, a circle. gonna rotate it 90 degrees, change the scale a little bit, and also give it some geometry. I will delete these two faces so we know when it's rotating, and also Control A and apply the scale. I would also Control A, apply the rotation, because currently it was rotated 90 degrees, but we need it to be 0 so we don't encounter any additional problems that we don't need. So let's move it a little bit to the front. Now I want to make this bone here copy the rotation of this one. And we can use the copy rotation constraint, but in my experience it is a little bit too limiting, because then we would first need to set up the axis of the bones and the target object, the circle here, correctly, and this is more hassle that it's actually necessary. And because in the constraint you can only copy the rotation from X to X, Y to Y, and Z to Z, but in some cases you need to copy the rotation from X to Z maybe. So that's why we're gonna use the transformation constraint. This gives us a lot more options, and it's not too difficult, I think. So the target is our circle, and the target is the local space, and the owner is also the local space. And now we have these two fields here, map from and map to. Map from is the circle here, we want its rotation, and map to, so to the bone, is also the rotation. This one here, when I go into the viewport display and show the axis, it's currently rotating on its y-axis. So when we go into the constraint, we should first choose the y-axis as the first one, so yxz. And then in the y-axis, we just say minus 360 to plus 360. That's just my regular amount that usually works good for me, because it's it goes full circle 2 times, and yeah, that just works. But you can also start at 0, it doesn't really matter. And we map it to, and now we have to see the axis also here. So we're gonna show them. That's the z-axis that needs to be rotated. So that's our source axis. So we go here to map to z source. We have x source, y source, and z source. And we take the z source and we choose the y axis here, because that's our source from the other object. And we also just do minus 360 to 360. Now, when we rotate it on its local y axis, nothing's happening, because for some reason, I think it's because we're dealing with the local space. This object needs to have a parent. So we will create an empty where we will parent everything to it. So that's what's gonna happen now. So let's take a cube, make it a little bit smaller, maybe move it a little bit further back right here. And then we're gonna parent it with Control P, keep transform. And now when I rotate it on its y-axis, it's working, but it's working the other way around. So we need to fix this also in the bone constraint. We can just change it up from 360 to minus 360. And now when we rotate it, yeah, now it's working perfectly. Awesome. So let's see. The leg is walking. Now we need to copy this whole leg a few times. And for that, it's good to have some kind of organization here. So I will just, first of all, select everything here except the circle here, and put it in its own collection, which is just called R, because it's the right leg. We will have some left legs, but this will be the right row. So I'll call it R0, because later on we will have also the rotations of the bones to be a little offset, to have like this kind of offset movement of all the legs. And we, for this tutorial, I chose to use 8 legs instead of 16, like in my example, because that would be too much work, and you get the point across, I think. So let's call it R0. So this is the whole leg inside here. And the empty is the, let's call it the main thing. Okay, and now what I will do is right-click on the collection and choose Duplicate Linked. What this will do is create a linked copy of the armature also. We can pose it completely independent of the first one, but the bones will always stay the same. So as soon as I change something in edit mode for the bones, it will be applied to all the other rigs. So this is very handy, and this will give us a few advantages later on. And I said we will have 8 legs, so I will offset every leg by 45 degrees. So in the end, we go full circle again, and we will have a nice 45-degree offset of each leg. So this will be called R45, and we will move it a little bit, and I would say we put the first one at minus 160, and this one at, let's say, 20 centimeters off, so minus 140. Okay, so now we have two legs, and as soon as I'm rotating this one, both move at the same time, obviously, because we didn't change anything. But now when I take the second leg and go into pose mode, Control Tab, choose the crank, go into also Euler, because I hate quaternions, I don't understand them at all. I use the XYZ Euler most of the time. We can now change the rotation on the Z-axis a little bit by 45 degrees. And now you can see, so now we have this nice offset. So now when I'm spinning this, you see we have like almost like this kind of jumpy animation. Okay, so this is cool. And now all we need to do is do this exact thing a few more times. So again, copy a linked, change it to 90 degrees, move it also 20 centimeters up, so we have always the same distance. And again, in pose mode, change this rotation to 90. Okay, let's see how this looks. Rotate. And this is looking pretty good, I would say. So we do it again and again and again, and I will fast forward this step because I think you get the point. Awesome. So now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 collections, 8 rigs, with each having a slight offset to the next one. So you can see right here when I deactivate the bones. By the way, don't be confused when I just press B and it hides all the armatures. That's just my personal hotkey. I think I set it up here to hide the empties and also to hide the armatures. So I would highly recommend it because it helps a lot, especially with these kind of complex armatures. It can just be super handy to just press B and hide them and unhide them. Okay, so now when I rotate this one again, we have this nice kind of fluid motion that we wanted to achieve, especially from the side. It looks really cool when you look at the feet. Awesome. So this is already pretty cool. They all should be also parented to this empty here. No, they are not, which is good because we need a separate sub-empty, I would say, just for the right-hand side, because then we will copy this whole side just to the other side, and this will be way easier. So I will create a new collection. We will put all the other rigs in this collection. So this says everything besides the empty. This will be like the master empty. This is the circle. So what we will also do is put this circle here also in the collection. So if you press M to R and just choose R, then it's also part of this whole collection. Let's make it maybe red so it's easier to see. So this is in the collection. It will make sense just in a minute. And now we need also another empty to have the whole collection with it, for it to make it easier to mirror it. Shift A, empty, and I will just use a plain axis, maybe make it a little bit smaller. And I will now choose all the rigs and parent them to this one empty. Control P, keep transform. So now everything here is parented. Also this one here too. So everything is now parented with this one. And this is the whole content of this collection here. Okay, and now I will right click, duplicate linked, and I will call it L. So this will be the left hand side. Maybe also make everything green. This empty can be also called R. Where is it? Let's put it directly into the collection. So it's right here. This one here, this empty, let's call it L. This should be in the L collection, but in the main L collection. So it's not in one of those sub collections here. So we have R here and we have L. And we take the L, we can move it around. We can just now rotate it 180 degrees, or we could just mirror it, but through mirroring, it introduces a few more problems. We don't need those, so let's rotate it on the Z-axis 180 degrees and move it slightly about 10 centimeters in between. So now we have all those paths going in between each other. Okay, so this is pretty cool. So now we have those two empties, L and R here, that are controlling each side, and we have the master empty that is doing nothing because we didn't parent the both empties to this one. So Control P, keep transformation, and now we have this whole thing controllable with just this empty. But now you see we have the second rotating piece that is controlling just this one hand side. And we don't want to have the two controllers control each side. It would be better to just have one to control both sides. So what we can do is, first of all, make this one not be linked, because currently these both are instances. So when I change this one, the other one is also changing. We need to make them separate because later on they need to be independent. And what we can do now is just add a copy rotation. This time it should work. Copy rotation constraint. And choose this one as the target. Okay, and we also need to use the local space. So now when we rotate it, we now control both sides with just this one circle. But as you can see, both walk in the opposite direction. But that's an easy fix, because when we go into the copy rotation, we just need to invert the y-axis. Was it the y-axis? So now when I rotate it, now they walk in the same direction. Okay, awesome. So is everything working? Yes, we have everything that we need. So let's check the armatures. Is everything all right here? Looks good. And that's pretty much it. So now you have this kind of mesmerizing control. You can now move it left and right and animate it. And that's pretty much it. And it was way easier than you thought. Probably, right? For me, the more I do those things, the easier it seems. Almost feel like Neo with just seeing the Matrix after a while. Just seeing rigs and constraints and everything kind of clicks already. But now you're probably wondering, wait a second, there were also like some sails at the top, and you could also just move this rig left and right and they were walking automatically. How does that work? Well, this will be an exclusive Patreon part of this tutorial. So if you visit my Patreon, the link is in the description below, you will have access to an extended version of this tutorial where I also talk about the sails at the top and also the possibility of move it just left and right and the legs will follow along. So if you like to see the extended version of this tutorial, then please consider joining my Patreon, and then you will gain access to all the other videos and a ton of cool stuff that is probably also interesting for you. Just check it out. I would highly appreciate it. So for you on YouTube, that's it. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. It was a lot of fun. It is one of my most passionate projects from recent days. So I really enjoyed it, and I hope you did too. If you have any more suggestions about what I should rig next, mostly I do like mechanical rigs, so if you have any suggestions, please leave them in the comments below. Please also consider subscribing to the channel. It's completely free and it also helps me a ton. And also please click the thumbs up, because that also helps me a lot. And if you're there, also the notification belly thing, this will notify you whenever I post a new video. Other than that, thanks for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video. Take care and bye-bye.